All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justmoparjoe. Today we're going to finish the top end on the 508 stroker build. This is a street stroker. It is 10.5 to 1 compression. It does have a hydraulic roller cam. Let me just show you. She's been zero decked. This is a 440 source 512 kit. The engine is 40 over, so that makes it a 508. I think I have a playlist that says 512 stroker or something. I can change that later, but I'm to the point. I need to do my lifters, put in lifters, push rods, head gaskets, the Valley plate, which I did check on YouTube. I didn't see a video anywhere of anybody installing one of the Valley plates. So I figured I might as well show it in the video today. Typically I use the old 10s for my stuff, but this is a little bit nicer, and they do make a nicer plate than I have that has an opening in the top of it where you can pop it off and get to your lifters and stuff. But this is a nice plate. It came with the Indy heads. And I just wanted to show you, I know I've done a video on head gasket stuff before. Here is the 85 19 PTI gasket. So this block has a certain chamfer to it in a lot of areas, like right there. But overall, this side looks really nice. That gasket would work. You can see it's got miles of room. Gets a little bit tight right there. If I can get it to focus, there we go. But it still has an edge. I'm not sure what that edge should be. I think someone told me 15 thousandths before, because the ring's going to compress and kind of move in some. The other side, if I can do this with one hand. The other side was our problem side. So this cylinder right here, see if I can show it to you. So we get pretty tight right there. But up here, man, it's just so close. I can't stand it. I don't even know if I can get a reflection. If I pull the gasket up, you can see something right there. But the gasket goes down and it basically hangs over. A 69 model 440 block, and you can see there's a mile of space. That gasket would be just fine. I think these are rated up to 10.5 to 1, but we have a gasket with a little bit larger bore for our 508. So that's what we're going to use today. It's an MLS. So I'll get the heads going in a minute. Lifters need to go in first. My lifter hack for you if you need one. Notice the oil holes are out of the oil, and the debate is still out on this. The jury's still out. A lot of people say don't soak your hydraulic lifters anymore. I don't think Howard's or Trickflow, which these are Trickflow lifters, although they're just Howard's lifters reboxed. There's that part number from 440 source. I'm not sure if they have an instruction on it or not. I know they come with instructions. I can show you that. There we are. Do not wash in any solvent. Wipe lifter with lint-free towel. I've already done that. Use 10W30 oil and lube the OD of body and wheel. So it says they should never be pumped up with oil before installation. Then it tells you about the lifter bore clearance and all that. So we're going to go through that, and then adjusting the lash here in a little while. But basically not soaking them. But I do like that the rollers and all the little needle bearings are soaked in the bottom of these. So this is just an ice tray. I can pull the lifter right out. And I know for a fact that there's oil all the way around them. And if this engine sets for a little while before startup, it's still going to have lube in there. So that'll be my first step, just dropping the lifters in. Simple. So if you'll remember, our oil holes are facing the top side, and our crossbar will be on the top side as well. So I'll just go through one by one, drop them in, cycle them up and down. It's nice. Be sure there's no hang-ups anywhere. Come on down. All the price is right. There we go. Smooth. And they'll be easy to re-lube in just a second. This is my Lucas 50/50 oil mix. So she's pretty nice and soupy. And I'll just run through and pour a little on top of the lobes. it's all going to go down to the oil pan anyway, but just knowing I'm not getting a dry lobe is good. Like that. I can even lift that out of there a little bit. And I'll prime this engine once again. I always prime mine. If I can pull up, squirt a little. There we go. Lubed. And I did check these bores all ahead of time before installing any pistons or doing the bottom end, just to be sure I didn't have any funky hang-ups of any kind, rough spots, rust, whatever. But those are all good to go. I can try to pour a shot in the top of them, which I may stick a little bit of stuff in the end of my push rod, but it's going to loop through there as well. So lifters are in. So our plate is set on. I ran my bead of RTV and you can see it squishing out right there. I tried to do the dandy amount, just a little baby tiny amount, so the people on YouTube wouldn't yell at me and say your RTV and the engine full. And I looked through that gap right there and I could see daylight even before it was torqued down. So I know the plate has a little bit of rock to it. Also, on my deck surfaces, I'm going to come back and redo those. But you see I can move that plate over just barely right there. So it catches, it's got a little bit of catch right there. I'm going to do this head first, but I'd like to feel, and I did test fit this ahead of time to see which way it liked better. So before I totally torque this down, my plate, I'm going to put my head gasket on, which is 40 thousandths thick. I'm going to run me a small bead of silicone across here, RTV, whatever you want to call it. And then I will place my head down and torque it. So this head will be torqued. I go to the other side, get that wiped. See, we have not yet slid over to this side yet, which is fine. And there's a plenty big gap there. So fill in all my crevices, run my bead, torque this head down, and then I'll show you the next step. Let's check out our gasket. Oh, I realize it's hanging this side just a little bit there. See, and I can push it over and it might stay. But my gasket, you can see all the combined layers, and their thickness is much thicker than how much that was hanging over. So like I said, when I do my head, I'm gonna put a little dab right there, straight across that channel, both sides, head gasket down, and sealer on my head gaskets. You can copper coat if you wish. There's our big, beautiful oil holes there. Everything is unobstructed. And I'll bolt this head down. If you saw my last video on head bolts and the issues I was having, then you'll kind of know what I was up against there. So here are our Indy, says Indy X. These are the EZ1 heads. And this is the oil hole that they have. That is an 1/8 inch drill bit, and it just barely fits in that oil hole. If you track that oil hole, which I did with a piece of wire the other day, run it through. I just want to be sure there's nothing heavy, you know, from these being milled or any of that business. Eventually, I will get it to come out of that hole right there. I may have to feed it back through this way. There's the front one. Yeah. Which this will be the rear on that side. But this is a good time just to quadruple check that. There we go. I feel her moving now. There it is. Just like that. And if that wasn't enough, I will take my brake parts cleaner and squirt through it like this, away from my engine and all my parts and all my stuff. Be sure she comes out nice and clean. There you go. Wipe her up. And I can blow it out now with a little compressed air. She'll be ready to install. Looking nice. I like to lean my head down and look if I can get a... There we go. Dowel pin and a, come on baby. 2 dowel pins in. Nah, we're cooking. So you can see I got a really nice, I did that just perfect. Basically dragged down the center of my rail there, of the pan, with 1 bead of silicone, and it perfectly split it when I put the head on. So half of it came on the top side, the other half went on the bottom. And if I want to, I can try to snake my hand through and wipe the bottom. I don't think any came out the bottom, as the rail itself is pretty thick, like wide. So maybe just all the bolts in, they are lubed. And I did not use a washer under them. So I know that's going to hurt a lot of people's hearts. I will put a link up to a video somewhere right here that shows the great Steve Dulcich even mentioning he does not like how short a lot of aftermarket bolts are now. And I did compare this to a stock bolt, and I have to agree with him. So right now we're going to go, I'm going to torque this in 3 steps. Start at 35 foot-pounds. I can get her in there. There we go. And life will go on. I'll listen for, there was a guy online that said he was torquing his manly bolts and you could hear the head snap off one. So I want to watch out for that. And I figured if I had the camera on, we could all have a listen in case it happened. There we go. And this is just the first torque, so it's not super crucial. I'm working inside and going outward. "17 times. There. Back to here. Not so bad. I lost track. I think I've already done that one. Go to here. I'll finish right there. Done that. That one. There. And here's our final. So we hit 35 pretty easily. Take her up to 50. And then we'll finish with 65. So when I come back, this will be torqued down. You don't have to watch that sequence again, do you? So side number 1 is done. Before I torqued this head, I went through and wiped off that big bead that was hanging out this top side. And now, since it's been torqued, you can see just a beautiful small bead that has arisen all the way down there. So that looks really nice. I am certain that that is sealed up beautifully. I can go ahead and wipe that off just like that. And she's sealed. I did give these a preliminary tighten. I didn't use any, I just did it by hand, by feel. I didn't get a torque wrench out to tighten those down. But snugged them up pretty well to where I had a good squish here. And I'll check them one more time after the heads are on. But I do believe as the head goes on, this is going to be kind of compacting both sides. I don't foresee that plate ever shaking itself loose in any form or fashion, especially if it's glued on the bottom. So looks good to go. Well, our heads are on and sealed up nicely everywhere. I set the intake on to kind of mock it up with the gaskets in place. Here's the gaskets that I have. Give them a try. 5841 Mr. Gaskets. And I haven't been able to tell if they're too thick or not. I need to get my bore scope out, but just with them as they are, all the bolts are in, and you can do this to every one of them. It's amazing, especially since this block has been zero decked and the heads were shaved. I don't remember, 12 or 15 thousandths, whatever it was, to get us to that true 10.5 static. We'll pop this off and test the fit of those gaskets themselves. Also, for my rocker arm stuff, I have called Harlan Sharp, talked to them, and I've got a pair of rocker shafts coming that are really nice Harlan Sharp rockers to go with our 440 source rocker arms here. So they seem to be very nice to work with. And if I was buying a set of rockers tomorrow and I had the money, I would definitely get the Harlan Sharps. So I'll play with these later. With the gaskets pulled out, I've got the intake setting on here, and I was trying to check what my port window looks like. You can kind of see it there, but you can really see it right here. See if I can't get you on in there some. The left and right, like side to side, looks beautiful. So you're looking at, there we go. You see the CNC ported part of it, and then the actual intake itself lines up real nicely. The bottom side, if I turned you, the bottom, so it's a little bit low right now, it needs to go up. Well, guess what? Our gasket will actually bring that up. So that looks great. I'm gonna check another port. You can see our side there. If I slid the intake back just barely, it would help take that up. And the bottom of that port is also low, so that's a good sign. I do believe the gasket will raise that up. And while we're here, let's just check the other side. You can get a pretty good line of sight down that one. I mean, it just pretty nice right there. Yep. And so you see our side to side there. I will slide the intake back just to give you an example of what's about to happen. See how there's our port mismatch. I come forward. I mean, that's just beautiful. You saw it in real time. So that's all nice. There's the bottom of the port. You can see just a corner of it there. What I'm going to do is get my gaskets. I'm going to have to cut these windows open a little bit to be able to port match, I guess, the max wedge port size. And they probably sell max wedge port gaskets. But I have these, and I have a pretty steady hand, so I'm going to fix them. I will fit them to the heads. Then I'll get my intake bolted on and use my camera to adjust the intake back and forth before I tighten my bolts down. So I think that'll get my port match very close, especially with all this. This is basically, I mean, that's how Indy sent this intake from the factory, to get it lined up. And I think this is probably the best way. Just use your camera. I could lay out with marking fluid and spend several more hours doing that. And there may be a little corner or something somewhere that I may could touch up some, but really and truthfully, I believe the intake is dead on. I mean, it's nice.